The siege of Archon 9. The distress signal from Varkon 9 had been looping for hours. This is Governor Alrin Vess of Varkon 9. We are under attack by Korlak raiders. Casualties unknown. They have taken hostages, humans and Confederation citizens alike. They demand tribute. The local defense fleet is destroyed. We require immediate aid. Please, we don't have much time. By the time the Terran Union fleet arrived in orbit, the colony was already in Korlak hands. Fires still burned in the trade district. Wreckage from Varkon 9's destroyed defense ships drifted in orbit, a silent testament to the speed of the attack. Aboard the TUS Vengeance, Admiral Elias Carter listened to the Confederation's debate over an open transmission. We must open negotiations, pleaded Counselor Reshvanak, a reptilian Tari diplomat. The Korlak are brutal, yes, but they understand the value of trade. If we meet their demands, they will release the hostages. You don't negotiate with Korlak, another voice countered. You appease them once, they'll keep coming back for more. The debate had been going in circles for hours, the Confederation paralyzed by indecision. Carter had heard enough. He cut into the conversation, his voice calm but firm. Galactic warning. Humans won't negotiate with terrorists. Silence. Even the Korlak warlord on the open channel, Commander Korlak, paused before laughing. Bold words, human. But I hold the lives of thousands in my hands. What will you do? Throw them away? Carter stared at the holographic display of the colony, his expression unreadable. He tapped a command on his console. A list of high-value hostages appeared. Terran citizens, Confederation dignitaries, even children taken from a refugee center. The Korlak had been thorough, but they had made one mistake. They assumed humanity played by the same rules as the Confederation. Carter turned to his second-in-command, Commander Julia Reyes. Is the strike team in position? Locked and loaded, Admiral. Carter returned to the open channel. Korlak, I suggest you enjoy your last few hours of life. Because we're coming for you. The Korlak leader snarled. If you attempt a rescue, I'll execute a hostage every hour. Carter's reply was simple. Try. Ground assault, the Terran way. The Confederation's typical approach to a hostage crisis was prolonged negotiation, gradual concessions, and, if all else failed, a slow, careful military intervention. Terrans didn't have that kind of patience. Under cover of night, Terran Special Forces, TSEF, deployed from low-orbit drop pods, bypassing the Korlak's rudimentary perimeter defenses with precision. Each operative's helmet display highlighted hostile positions, hostage locations, and key infrastructure points. Leading the assault was Captain Lexa Voss, a veteran of over a dozen anti-piracy campaigns. She moved like a shadow through the ruined streets, her squad eliminating sentries with suppressed plasma rifles. Inside the main Korlak stronghold, a former Varkon 9 government building, hundreds of hostages were kept in makeshift cells. Guards patrolled lazily, convinced that no rescue attempt would come this soon. They were wrong. The first Korlak fell without a sound, a knife to the throat. The second collapsed with a silenced shot to the head. By the time alarms blared, half the enemy force was already dead. Voss's team swept through the compound, breaching doors with controlled explosives, gunning down Korlak warriors with ruthless efficiency. A hostage, a young human girl, stared wide-eyed as the soldiers cut through their captors with mechanical precision. On your feet, Voss ordered, lifting her rifle. We're getting you out of here. Outside, the Korlak attempted to rally. Commander Korlak himself led a squad toward the stronghold, roaring orders. Kill the prisoners. If we can't have them, neither will the humans. He never made it inside. Terran snipers eliminated him with a single coordinated volley. At that moment, the Korlak learned something crucial about humanity. They didn't bargain. They didn't plead. They ended threats. By dawn, Varkon 9 was liberated. Every hostage rescued. Every Korlak dead. In orbit, Admiral Carter sent a final message to the remaining Korlak ships fleeing the system. Let the galaxy remember this day. If you take hostages, you won't live long enough to spend the ransom. The Korlak had terrorized the outer colonies for decades. But now, for the first time, The galaxy saw the price of their actions. Humanity had spoken, and the warning was clear. The raid begins. The Korlak had underestimated the humans. In every previous encounter with the Galactic Confederation, their tactics had worked flawlessly. They would seize a colony, issue their demands, and wait for the weak-willed politicians to cave. No one had ever dared strike back so quickly. No one had ever ignored their threats. Until now. Commander Korlak was dead. The Terran Special Forces had wiped out his entire ground force in a single night. Now, the remaining Korlak warriors were scrambling to hold onto what little power they had left. They still had one card to play. A final transmission from the Korlak warship Bloodfang crackled through the Confederation's open channels. "You think this is over, humans?" the new Korlak leader snarled. "You have made a grave mistake. We still hold the central power grid of Varkon 9. We control the orbital defense cannons. If you do not leave immediately, we will bombard this colony until nothing remains." It was a desperate bluff. But desperate men and desperate aliens were the most dangerous kind. No more games. Aboard the TUS Vengeance, Admiral Elias Carter folded his arms, watching the Korlak warlord's message with cold, unreadable eyes. Counselor Reshvanak of the Confederation, still reeling from the events of the past 24 hours, spoke urgently. "Admiral Carter, please, I beg you. This situation has not yet spiraled beyond control. If we open a line of communication, perhaps we can find a peaceful—" Carter didn't let him finish. "Commander Reyes," he said, turning to his second-in-command. "Begin Operation Silent Storm." Reyes nodded. "Yes, sir. Initiating now." Within seconds, the Korlak fleet experienced total blackout. The Bloodfang's bridge exploded into chaos as their screens went dark. Their targeting systems scrambled beyond recognition. Their communications went silent. Even their life support systems flickered erratically. The Korlak warlord's growl turned to a roar of panic. What is this? What have you done?" Admiral Carter leaned forward slightly. "I warned you. Humanity's cyber warfare technology was decades ahead of anything the Confederation had. With a single command, their ships had been reduced to floating metal coffins. But Carter wasn't done yet. Storming the stronghold. While the Korlak fleet floundered in orbit, Captain Lexa Voss and her Special Forces strike team launched a second ground assault, this time targeting the power grid and orbital defense systems. The Korlak had fortified the complex, expecting a slow siege. Instead, they got lightning-fast urban warfare. Voss and her team moved through the ruins of Varkon 9 with deadly precision, flanking Korlak positions before they even knew they were under attack. The night before had been a surgical rescue. This was extermination. A Korlak warrior, larger than the rest, lunged at Voss with a plasma axe. She sidestepped the swing and put 2 rounds into his skull before he even realized he'd missed. The remaining Korlak turned to flee. They didn't get far. Voss activated her comms. "TSF to Vengeance. Power grid is secure. Beginning deactivation of orbital cannons." Carter's voice came through crisp and calm. "Understood. Make it quick. I want this over in the next 15 minutes. Voss smirked. "We'll be done in 10. Into the Korlak. Back in orbit, the TUS Vengeance unleashed targeted orbital strikes on the disabled Korlak warships. The Bloodfang, once the feared flagship of the raiders, was torn apart by a single precision railgun shot through its reactor core. One by one, the remaining Korlak vessels exploded into fireballs, their shields useless, their systems locked. They never had a chance to fight back. On the surface, the last of the Korlak warriors made a final, futile stand at the power grid control room. Voss and her team eliminated them in under 90 seconds. Then silence. The battle was over. Varkon 9 was free. A message to the galaxy. Admiral Carter stood on the bridge of the Vengeance, watching the last remnants of the Korlak fleet burn in orbit. The Confederation's delegation was still speechless. Finally, Counselor Reshvanak found his voice. "You just wiped them out." Carter turned to him, his face unreadable. "You're welcome." The Mtari diplomat swallowed hard. "This is going to change things." The Confederation. Needs to learn a lesson, Carter interrupted. You don't negotiate with terrorists. You eliminate them. He turned back to the viewport, issuing a final transmission across open frequencies, one that every pirate, slaver, and warlord in the galaxy would hear. Let this be a warning. If you take hostages, if you prey on the innocent, if you think you can extort humanity, you will not survive the mistake. For decades, the Korlak had terrorized the outer colonies. They had believed themselves untouchable. Now they were extinct, and the galaxy had just learned a very dangerous truth about humanity. They weren't just survivors. They were the reckoning. The Korlak's last stand. The Korlak were finished. They just didn't know it yet. Their fleet was gone, obliterated in orbit. Their warriors were dead, gunned down in the streets of Arcanine. The last remnants of their once-feared raiding force were holed up inside the primary power grid control center, cut off from any chance of escape. But they still had one card left to play, a last-ditch failsafe that would turn Varcon 9 into a funeral pyre. A desperate gambit. Deep inside the power grid facility, Warlord Korlak, one of the few surviving Korlak commanders, slammed his clawed fist against the control panel. The holographic interface flickered as he entered a series of commands. If we are to die, we will take them with us, he growled. His second-in-command, a scarred brute named Vorag, hesitated. Warlord, the Confederation may still offer a way out. We could. Korlak grabbed him by the throat and slammed him against the console. Do you think the humans will negotiate? Do you think they will let us live? His voice was a furious snarl. No, they have shown us what they are. And now, we show them what we are. With a final keystroke, the self-destruct protocol activated. A countdown appeared on the screen. 15 minutes. 15 minutes before every reactor on Varcon 9 overloaded, turning the colony into molten slag. Korlak bared his fangs. If the humans wanted victory, they would pay for it in fire. TSF breach. Captain Lexa Voss and her Terran Special Forces, TSF, unit were already inside the facility, moving swiftly and silently toward the control center. Their HUDs displayed the countdown in bright red. 14:52. 14:51. Voss to vengeance, she said through comms. The Korlak just activated some kind of overload sequence. We're moving to shut it down. Admiral Elias Carter's voice came through immediately. Understood. Do whatever it takes. Voss switched channels. Hendricks, we need that door open now. Hurt demolition specialist, Sergeant Hendricks, knelt by the reinforced blast doors separating them from the control room. He studied the Korlak encryption system, brow furrowed. They locked this up tight, but he pulled out a compact plasma cutter. Give me 30 seconds. They didn't have 30 seconds. The Korlak inside must have realized they were coming, because heavy gunfire erupted from inside the room, ripping through the door. Shit, Voss shouted as she and her team hit cover. The Korlak weren't going to wait for them to breach. They were going to gun them down the moment the doors opened. Fine. Kovacs, smoke out. Her grenadier, Lieutenant Kovacs, lobbed a flash smoke grenade into the breach as soon as the plasma cutter finished its work. The room filled with blinding white fog, and then Voss's team stormed inside. The fight lasted 9 seconds. 9 seconds of precise, disciplined destruction. By the time the smoke cleared, every Korlak inside was dead. Countdown to extinction. Voss sprinted to the control panel. The self-destruct timer glowed bright red. 02:34. 02:33. Reyes, we need a system override now, she called over comms. Commander Julia Reyes, back aboard the TUS Vengeance, was already working. Her team had been hacking into the planetary grid the moment they intercepted the distress call. Working on it. The Korlak encrypted this thing like their lives depended on it. Voss clenched her jaw. Because they do. Her tech specialist, Corporal Singh, was already at the terminal, fingers flying over the interface. I can slow the meltdown, but I can't stop it completely. The system is fried. The countdown hit 1 minute. Admiral Carter's voice came through the comms. Options. Singh wiped sweat from his brow. We can't stop the detonation, but we can reroute the overload to the underground levels. Voss understood immediately. Localized meltdown. The colony survives, but this facility is gone. Carter's response was instant. Do it. Singh punched in the final commands. 00:10. 00:09. Done. Moving now. The team sprinted out of the facility, boots pounding against metal floors. They were barely clear when the first explosion erupted beneath them, sending a shockwave through the streets of Archon 9. Voss and her team hit the ground just as the control center collapsed in on itself, disappearing into a fiery crater. And just like that, the last of the Korlak threat was gone. The end of the Korlak. Silence. Then, over the comms. Vengeance to ground teams. Status. Voss coughed, pushing herself to her feet. Alive. Grid's gone, but the colony's safe. A long pause. Then Carter's voice, calm and firm. Good work. Return to base. Voss exhaled. It was over. As she and her team made their way back to their transport, she glanced toward the rising sun. The people of Archon 9 had gone to sleep under Korlak occupation. Now they would wake up to a new world, one where their tormentors no longer existed. The Korlak had tried to make an example of Archon 9. Instead, humanity had made an example of them, a warning to the galaxy. The battle for Varkon 9 was over, but its consequences had only just begun. The Korlak were gone, wiped from the planet, their fleet obliterated, their last desperate act of defiance buried beneath the rubble of their own making. But this wasn't just about a single colony. This was about the message humanity had sent to the entire galaxy. The aftermath. From the bridge of the TUS Vengeance, Admiral Elias Carter watched the final cleanup efforts on Varkon 9. Medical teams were tending to survivors. Engineering crews worked to restore power, and Terran Marines patrolled the streets, ensuring no lingering Korlak threats remained. The Confederation's diplomatic envoy had just arrived in system, 2 days too late to be of any use. Their flagship, the CNS Harmony, transmitted a request for immediate talks. Carter sighed. Here we go. He turned to his second-in-command, Commander Reyes. Have him patch through to the conference room. Let's hear what they have to say. Reyes smirked. Something tells me they won't be offering congratulations. Carter gave her a dry look. Let's find out. The Confederation's response. In the sterile conference chamber aboard the Vengeance, Carter sat across from Counselor Reshvanak, the Confederation's senior diplomat. The Mtari's reptilian features were twisted in clear disapproval. This is unacceptable, Admiral, he began. Humanity acted without Confederation authorization. You have overstepped your role. Carter leaned forward, cutting him off. We save lives. Reshvanak's eyes flickered with anger. You didn't just save lives. You exterminated the Korlak. There were no prisoners, no negotiations. You enacted genocide. Carter's expression didn't change. Call it what you want. But the Korlak aren't coming back. The counselor exhaled sharply, shaking his head. You don't understand the consequences of your actions. The Confederation is built on diplomacy. By refusing to negotiate, you have made humanity look like an unchecked force of destruction. Carter's voice was ice. We didn't refuse to negotiate. We refused to reward terrorism. Reshvanak's mouth opened, then closed. He had no answer to that. After a long silence, Carter continued. We gave the Confederation time to respond. You hesitated. If we had waited for you, thousands would be dead. Instead, the colony still stands. The people still live. He leaned back in his chair. So tell me, Counselor, was it really unacceptable? The Mtari's jaw clenched. Finally, he spoke. The Council will demand a formal hearing. They will not let this go unanswered. Carter nodded. Let them. I'll be there. Reshvanak stared at him for a long moment, then sighed. I hope, for all our sakes, you understand what you've set in motion. With that, the transmission ended. A message to the Predators. Later that evening, Carter stood on the bridge, watching the stars. Commander Reyes joined him. Think the Confederation will actually do anything? She asked. Carter smirked. They'll bluster, maybe hold a few hearings, but in the end, they'll realize the truth. Reyes crossed her arms. And what's that? Carter turned to face her. That the only way to stop monsters is to be something worse. Reyes let that sit for a moment before speaking again. We sent a message today. No, Carter corrected. We've sent a warning. With a single command, he transmitted a signal across the entire Confederation network. One that would reach every pirate lord, every warlord, every slaver and raider who had ever preyed on the weak. A single statement burned into history. Galactic warning. Humans won't negotiate with terrorists. You take hostages, you die. You threaten our people, you disappear. There will be no second chances. Across the galaxy, those who thrived on fear now had something new to fear. The days of raiding helpless colonies were over. The age of humanity's reckoning had begun.